At 28 years old, Caleb Rowan believed he had experienced every possible form of embarrassment his father could create. He was wrong. At 7 on a Monday morning, Victor Rowan placed his adult son inside the back of a delivery van, tied a red satin ribbon loosely around his wrists, and attached a card to his jacket. The card read, "For President Celeste Arden, first payment on my debt. Handle with care. Complains frequently." Caleb stared at his father. "You understand that this resembles a crime." Victor adjusted the bow. "The ribbon is decorative. You can remove it whenever you want." "Then why am I in a van?" "The entrance will be memorable. Prison will also be memorable." Victor ignored him and closed the doors. 20 minutes later, the van entered the gates of the Arden estate. The estate manager, Mr. Harris, expected furniture for the East Wing. He did not expect a flower shop owner wearing jeans, an angry expression, and enough ribbon to decorate a wedding hall. Caleb stepped onto the driveway. "Good morning," Mr. Harris said carefully. "That depends on your definition." Victor handed him the card with both hands. "Please tell President Arden that Rowan Works honors its obligations." Mr. Harris read the message twice. "Sir, debts are generally paid through financial transfers. The financial transfer arrives after the bridge loan closes. This is a symbol of sincerity." "I am not a symbol," Caleb said. The front door opened. Celeste Arden walked onto the stone terrace. Employees called her the Glass Queen because she was elegant, calm, and almost impossible to read. At 30, she controlled Arden Holdings, a property and technology group large enough to rescue Rowan Works without changing a single digit in its annual report. She wore a dark green suit and held a tablet in one hand. Her gaze moved from Victor to the delivery van, and finally to the ribbon around Caleb's wrists. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Celeste looked at Mr. Harris. "Untie him." Caleb lifted his hands. "I can do it." "Then do it." He pulled one end of the bow. The ribbon fell immediately. Celeste turned to Victor. "Mr. Rowan, people are not collateral." Victor's confidence disappeared. "I know. The presentation was meant to be humorous." "It was not. A little," Mr. Harris whispered. Celeste looked at him. "Not at all." Mr. Harris became professionally expressionless. Victor cleared his throat. "Caleb signed the Willow House contract willingly. I only thought that after everything between your families, the bridge investment in Rowan Works has no personal condition attached to it," Celeste said. "The contract has already been reviewed by independent counsel. Arden receives 32% equity at the current valuation, and you retain operational management subject to quarterly oversight." She glanced toward Caleb. "Your son's employment is separate. He may terminate it today without affecting the investment." Caleb had known those terms. He had insisted on them. The night before, his attorney had explained every line of the 6-month agreement. Caleb would live at the Arden estate while directing the restoration of Willow House, a neglected glass conservatory and family residence on the eastern grounds. His salary and performance bonus would help repay the personal guarantee Victor had placed on Rowan Works. Caleb was not being purchased. His father had simply chosen the most ridiculous possible way to deliver an employee. "I am staying," Caleb said. Celeste's eyes returned to him. "You do not have to. I signed a job. Your father wrapped you like a holiday gift. That part was not in the contract. I assumed." For 1 second, the corner of her mouth moved. Then the Glass Queen returned. "Mr. Harris, show Mr. Rowan to the West guest room. The project briefing begins at 9. Victor exhaled with relief. "President Arden, thank you for giving Rowan Works a chance. I made an investment, not a donation. Your modular housing project is delayed, not worthless. Complete it responsibly, and the company will recover." Victor bowed. Before leaving, he pulled Caleb aside. "Be polite. You transported me in a box, and do not provoke her. You put my name on a card marked payment. Son, your mother would have understood the joke." The mention of Caleb's late mother removed some of his anger. Victor's hair had turned noticeably gray during the last 3 months. Rowan Works employed 8,000 people. A delayed government payment had broken its cash flow, and every bank had refused additional credit. Victor had not gambled the company or stolen from anyone. He had guaranteed an ambitious, affordable housing project and underestimated how long the reimbursement would take. Celeste's investment protected thousands of jobs. Caleb could survive one terrible ribbon. "Go home," he said. "Finish the project." Victor's expression softened. "Call if she treats you unfairly." Celeste stood 10 feet away. "I can hear you." Victor left immediately. Caleb followed Mr. Harris into the house. The Arden estate did not resemble a home. It resembled a private museum where no one was allowed to touch history. Pale stone floors reflected tall windows. Portraits watched from paneled walls. Fresh white flowers stood in every room without one fallen petal. Caleb owned a flower shop. He distrusted arrangements that perfect. "The West Room is upstairs," Mr. Harris said. "Breakfast is served at 7:30. Ms. Arden leaves for the office at 8. Your project hours are flexible, but the restoration site closes at 6 for safety." Does she always speak like a legal notice? No. Really? Some legal notices are warmer. Caleb liked Mr. Harris immediately. They reached the second-floor gallery. A small face disappeared behind a doorway. Caleb stopped. Was that a child? Mr. Harris looked toward the door. That was Miss Maisie. Celeste's daughter? Her niece. The answer came too quickly for further questions. Mr. Harris opened the guest room. Caleb's suitcase already stood beside the bed. His father had delivered it normally, proving the van had been entirely unnecessary. "The East family rooms are private," Mr. Harris said. "Miss Maisie is cautious with strangers. Please allow her to approach in her own time." Of course. That single instruction made more sense than every part of the morning. At 9, Caleb entered Celeste's study. She sat behind a wide desk with architectural plans spread before her. The childhood girl he remembered had worn her hair in 2 braids and carried a sketchbook everywhere. The woman before him wore her dark hair in a smooth knot and made entire markets nervous with one quarterly statement. They had not spoken privately in 14 years. Celeste gestured toward the chair. "Sit. Good morning to you, too. We already greeted each other on the driveway. You ordered someone to untie me. That was the most urgent issue." Caleb sat. Willow House appeared in photographs across the desk. The structure had once been a winter garden built by Celeste's grandmother. Glass roofs connected a small residence, a greenhouse, and an art studio. After years of neglect, vines covered broken panes, water damaged the floors, and the garden had become unsafe. Celeste wanted it restored as a community grief center where families could receive counseling, attend art classes, and maintain memorial gardens. Caleb's flower shop had designed therapeutic gardens for 2 hospitals. His degree was in landscape architecture, though family responsibilities had prevented him from building the career he originally imagined. "Why me?" he asked. "Your proposal for St. Anne's Children's Garden. That project was small. It reduced patient distress scores during the pilot." "You read the evaluation?" "I read everything before signing a contract." Her tone was neutral, but she had remembered work most people ignored. "The restoration architect reports to you," Celeste continued. "The Counseling Foundation approves programming. Budget decisions above $50,000 require my office. You do not manage household staff, and you are not responsible for Maisie." "I did not think I was." Something guarded entered her expression. "Good." Caleb read the plan. "The opening deadline is 6 months." "Yes. The eastern greenhouse cannot be stabilized, replanted, inspected, and prepared for public use in 6 months. The previous consultant said it could. The previous consultant wanted the contract." Celeste leaned back. "What is realistic?" 8 months if the foundation is intact, 10 if it is not. I promised the foundation a winter opening. Then open the residence and studio first. Do not risk a glass roof above grieving families to protect a calendar." Silence followed. Caleb expected resistance. Celeste picked up a pen. "Submit a phased schedule by Friday." That was easy. "Did you expect me to demand unsafe work?" "I expected an argument." "You provided evidence. Arguments are unnecessary when evidence is clear." He almost smiled. "You changed." Her pen stopped. "So did you." Neither said whether the change was good. At noon, Caleb walked through Willow House with the restoration architect. Sunlight entered through missing glass and fell across weeds growing between tiles. A dry fountain occupied the center. Along one wall, faded drawings remained beneath protective sheets. Children had once painted flowers there. Caleb touched the edge of a blue cornflower. "Who made these?" "The Arden children." the architect said. Ms. Arden and her older brother. The brother, explained Maisie. Caleb did not ask. He spent the afternoon measuring planting beds, checking drainage, and documenting every damaged tree. Work cleared his mind better than explanations. At 5:30, he returned to the main house, covered in dust. Mr. Harris met him in the hall. Dinner is at 6. I should shower. You should. A small voice came from behind the staircase. Are you the flower man? Caleb turned. The child from the gallery stood with one hand on the railing. She looked about 5. Her dark curls were tied with a yellow ribbon, and she held a stuffed rabbit against her chest. My name is Caleb. Mr. Harris said you make gardens. Sometimes. Can you make dead flowers alive? He did not give the comforting lie adults often offered children. No, but I can plant new flowers from their seeds. Maisie considered that. Do the new flowers remember the old ones? In a way, they carry part of them. She looked toward Willow House beyond the windows. There are flowers for my mommy and daddy. Caleb's chest tightened. Then we will take very good care of them. Maisie moved one step closer. Are you Aunt Celeste's friend? He glanced toward the dining room. We knew each other when we were children. Were you nice? Celeste entered the hall before he could answer. Not always. Maisie looked between them. Did he say sorry? Caleb met Celeste's eyes. Not properly. Then he should. The child walked away with her rabbit, having completed the moral analysis. Celeste watched her disappear. She is correct. I know. Dinner is in 20 minutes. Is attendance contractual? No. Then are you inviting me? Celeste took a breath, as though the distinction required effort. Yes, I am inviting you. I accept. Dinner took place at one end of a table built for 16. Maisie sat beside Celeste. Caleb sat across from them. Mr. Harris served roasted vegetables, fish, and scallion noodles. Caleb looked at the noodles. Coincidence? The cook selected the menu, Celeste said. Mr. Harris set down a bowl. Ms. Arden selected the menu. Celeste looked at him. Your loyalty is disappointing. My employment requires accuracy. Caleb tasted the noodles. They were prepared exactly as his mother had made them, with less sugar and extra sesame. You remembered. It was in your employee preference form. I never completed an employee preference form. Celeste lifted her water glass. Then perhaps I remembered. Maisie watched them. Aunt Celeste remembers everything about people she likes. Celeste nearly inhaled the water. Eat your carrots. You do not like carrots, Maisie replied. Caleb lowered his head to hide a smile. After dinner, Maisie returned with a drawing. It showed the estate, Willow House, Celeste, Mr. Harris, and a figure beside a van wrapped in red lines. That is you, she told Caleb. I recognize the humiliation. Grandpa Victor said he delivered you. When did you meet my father? He came back because he forgot his phone. Caleb looked toward the ceiling. Of course. Maisie placed the drawing on the table. Are you staying forever? 6 months. Her face changed slightly. Celeste answered before Caleb could. People should not promise forever on the first day. Maisie hugged the rabbit tighter. Mommy and Daddy said forever. The room became still. Celeste crouched beside her. They wanted forever very much. But they left. They died, sweetheart. They did not choose to leave you. It feels the same. Celeste's voice remained steady, but pain moved beneath it. I know. Maisie looked at Caleb. Do 6 months always end? Yes, he said gently. But ending a job does not mean forgetting a person. Will you forget me? No. How do you know? Caleb pointed toward her drawing. Because nobody has ever drawn me as a present before. Maisie smiled a little. She did not call him father. She did not climb into his arms. She simply left the drawing on the table, a small beginning of trust. That night, Caleb called Theo Bennett, his best friend and business partner at Rowan and STEM. Theo answered over the sound of running water. Are you alive? Yes. Did the CEO lock you in a basement? No. Did she accept you as payment? She informed my father that people are not collateral. I like her. You have never met her. She agrees with basic law. Caleb described Willow House and the delayed schedule. Theo promised to manage the shop and send their senior florist twice a week. What about this CEO? Theo asked. What about her? Your father says you tormented her when you were children, and she became rich enough to purchase revenge. My father needs new hobbies. Did you apologize? Caleb thought of Maisie's question. Not yet. Then start there before discussing revenge. After the call, Caleb placed Maisie's drawing on the guest room desk. Across the estate, Celeste entered the child's bedroom. Maisie was awake beneath a nightlight shaped like a moon. Did the flower man go away? She asked. He is in the west room. Is he your boyfriend? No. Do you want him to be? Celeste adjusted the blanket. You ask difficult questions at bedtime. Mommy said questions make dark things smaller. Celeste looked toward the window. Your mother was right. You did not answer. I liked Caleb when we were young. Before he was a present? Long before. Did he like you? I do not know. Maisie yawned. You should ask. Within one day, a 5-year-old had given both adults the same advice. Neither followed it immediately. The first week established a careful routine. Caleb spent mornings at Willow House and afternoons between the project office and his flower shop. He returned to the estate for dinner because Maisie began saving one story about her day until he arrived. On Tuesday, she told him a classmate had swallowed a bead. On Wednesday, she reported that worms had 5 hearts. On Thursday, she informed him that Aunt Celeste sometimes cried in the laundry room because she believed no one looked there. Celeste slowly turned toward the child. That was private. Mr. Harris says families should communicate. Mr. Harris became extremely interested in the soup. Caleb did not ask Celeste about tears in front of Maisie. Later, he found her in the library. You do not need to explain anything, he said. I only want you to know I will not use what she said to embarrass you. Celeste closed the report in her hands. Thank you. And if you ever need someone to stand outside the laundry room, I am available. Her expression almost softened. That was nearly kind. I can be kinder after the project bonus. There you are. By Friday, Caleb submitted the phased restoration plan. It extended full completion to 9 months, but allowed the counseling rooms and art studio to open safely after 6. The greenhouse would remain closed until every structural test passed. Celeste approved it. No hidden condition appeared. No threat accompanied her signature. The debt arrangement remained business. Whatever existed between them would have to become something else, through choice. On Saturday morning, Caleb drove to Rowan and Stem. The flower shop occupied the corner of an old brick market. Buckets of seasonal blooms filled the windows, and Theo had painted a small sign above the door. Flowers for apologies, celebrations, and things you should have said earlier. Caleb suspected the final line had been added for him. Theo stood behind the counter building a wedding arrangement. You are late. I no longer live 7 minutes away. You live in a mansion. A guest room in a mansion. With the beautiful CEO. Across 2 hallways and 14 years of unresolved history. Theo handed him a bundle of eucalyptus. Then resolve 1 year per hallway. The bell above the door rang. Celeste entered with Maisie. Caleb stared. What are you doing here? Celeste looked at her watch. You asked the foundation to send someone who knows which memorial plants Maisie's mother preferred. I expected an email. Maisie wanted to see the flower shop. The child remained close to Celeste's side. She looked around at the color and movement, then whispered, It smells like spring. Theo came around the counter and crouched several feet away. Hello, I am Theo. I work for the flower man. Are you his boss? Absolutely. Caleb placed the eucalyptus on the table. We own equal shares. That is what I allow him to believe. Maisie smiled but did not move closer. Theo understood caution. He offered her a small yellow sunflower without attempting to touch her. Every new visitor chooses 1 flower for the front window. Maisie looked at Celeste. May I? Yes. She accepted the sunflower. Caleb spread plant catalogs across the work table. The memorial garden at Willow House would honor Nathan Arden and Julia Moore, Maisie's parents. Celeste had selected white roses because they photographed beautifully and survived local winters. Maisie disliked them. Mommy liked messy flowers, she said. What kind? Caleb asked. Purple ones, and little blue ones. Daddy liked plants that smelled like pizza. Lavender and basil? Theo suggested. Maisie nodded enthusiastically. Celeste looked at the elegant rose plan. We should change it. Caleb waited. You approved the roses. I approved what I thought a memorial garden should look like. Maisie remembers what they loved. They replaced formal rows with lavender, cornflowers, herbs, and climbing roses mixed together. A small section would remain open for Maisie to plant something different each year. Can the sunflower go there? She asked. Sunflowers are annuals, Caleb explained. They bloom for one season. Her face fell. But we can collect their seeds and plant them again next spring. Like new flowers remembering old flowers? Exactly. She placed the sunflower in the front window first. At lunch, Theo gave Maisie a small apron and let her arrange daisies in a jar. Celeste answered business calls near the back door. Caleb watched her pace. She had moved Arden Holdings headquarters into the city center 2 years earlier. The new office stood 4 blocks from Maisie's school. The source story people told was that Celeste wanted better access to investors. The truth was that she wanted to reach kindergarten in under 10 minutes. When the call ended, Caleb handed her tea. You skipped breakfast. How do you know? You moved the food around your plate. You were watching. You sat across from me. She took the tea. This does not mean I require monitoring. It means you require lunch. He placed a container beside her. Celeste opened it. Scallion noodles. You made these? Theo did. From the counter, Theo shouted, I did not! Caleb lowered his voice. His loyalty is disappointing. Celeste smiled into the container. Maisie saw. Aunt Celeste, you have the face. What face? The Caleb face. Both adults became still. What is the Caleb face? Caleb asked. Maisie demonstrated an exaggerated, dreamy smile. Theo turned away because laughter would have been dangerous. Celeste closed the container. We are leaving after lunch. Because of the face? Maisie asked. Because you have therapy at 2. The child's smile disappeared. She went to the table and continued arranging daisies. Caleb did not ask in front of her. Later, while Maisie washed paint from her hands, Celeste spoke quietly. She has grief counseling every Saturday. How long since the accident? 3 years and 4 months. She was 2? Almost 3. Celeste looked through the window at Maisie. Nathan was my older brother. Julia was his wife. They were driving home from a medical conference when a truck crossed the center line. Neither survived. I am sorry. Maisie remembers pieces. Julia singing in the kitchen, Nathan carrying her on his shoulders, the blue blanket in their car. Who has legal custody? I have permanent guardianship. Formal adoption requires final consent from Julia's mother, Eleanor. She lives in New Zealand and supports me, but Maisie's therapist advised waiting until she could understand what adoption changes and what it does not. That explanation closed every confusing possibility. Maisie was not Celeste's secret child. She had not been abandoned by an unknown father. She was a grieving child, surrounded by adults trying to respect her history. Does she want adoption? Caleb asked. Some days she asks to share my name. Other days she is afraid it will erase her parents. Then there is no need to rush. Celeste studied him. Most people say a clean legal family will help her move on. Children do not need their past cleaned. What do they need? Room to carry it safely. Celeste looked away before he could see how deeply the answer landed. Maisie returned wearing her coat. Caleb? It was the first time she used his name without calling him Flower Man. Yes? Will the sunflower still be here next Saturday? I will keep it in the window. Promise? Caleb considered Celeste's warning about promises. I promise the flower will stay as long as it is healthy. When it begins to fade, I will save the seeds for you. Maisie accepted the careful answer. Okay. After they left, Theo leaned against the counter. You are in trouble. The project is manageable. I was not referring to the greenhouse. Caleb cleaned the work table. Celeste and I barely tolerate each other. She moved an international call outside so her niece, could arrange daisies. Then she ate food you made while smiling at the container. Maisie said the smile looked ridiculous. Children recognize love before adults admit it. Caleb threw a towel at him. That evening, he found Celeste in Willow House. She stood beneath the faded mural, holding one of the protective sheets. The site is closed, he said. I own it. Ownership does not strengthen damaged ceilings. The architect said this section is safe. He also said you would ignore the sign. Celeste looked at the childhood paintings. You asked who made these? You and Nathan. And you? Caleb moved closer. Near the bottom of the wall, beneath years of dust, a green dragon curled around a painted tree. He remembered. At 13, he spent summers at the neighboring estate because Victor worked with Celeste's father. Caleb, Nathan, and Celeste treated Willow House as their private kingdom. Nathan built wooden swords. Celeste painted maps. Caleb invented games and ruined most peaceful afternoons. I drew the dragon, he said. You insisted every garden required one. That remains professionally correct. She released the protective sheet. Maisie asked whether you apologized. I came to find you because of that. Celeste became guarded. You do not owe me an apology because a child requested it. No. I owe it because I damaged your work and let 14 years pass. The worst incident had happened during the regional youth art competition. Celeste created a watercolor series of Willow House through 4 seasons. She worked on it for months. On submission day, Caleb hid her portfolio inside the old greenhouse because he wanted her to chase him instead of leaving for school. A broken pane allowed rain inside. By the time they found it, the paintings were ruined. Caleb had laughed when she first panicked because he assumed she could repaint them. Then he saw her crying. Victor forced him to apologize that evening. Caleb stood at the Arden door, repeated words his father had prepared, and felt sorry mostly because he had been punished. It had not been enough. I told myself it was a childish prank, Caleb said, that I only wanted your attention. Both things are true, and neither excuses what I did. Celeste did not rescue him from the silence. You lost the competition because of me. More importantly, I made something you loved feel unsafe. When you cried, I acted embarrassed instead of caring about the harm. He looked directly at her. I am sorry, Celeste. Not because my father needs your investment, not because we are working together. I am sorry because you deserved better from me. Her eyes shone, but her voice remained controlled. I believed you hated me. I did not. That did not make it hurt less. I know. Do you? Caleb nodded. Liking someone does not turn cruelty into affection. I was immature and selfish. For a long moment, rain tapped against the covered glass above them. Thank you, Celeste said. Do you forgive me? Partly. The honest answer surprised him. Fair. I forgave the 13-year-old a long time ago. I'm still deciding what I think of the adult who arrived wrapped in ribbon. He has excellent references. His packaging was unprofessional. Agreed. The tension eased without disappearing. Celeste looked at the dragon. After the paintings were ruined, Nathan helped me reproduce one from memory. Did you submit it? The deadline had passed. Where is it? In my office. Caleb had visited her office many times in recent weeks and never noticed. Which painting? The winter greenhouse. He remembered a pale watercolor hanging behind her desk. You kept it all this time. It reminds me that ruined work can become something different. The apology did not produce an instant romance. It produced room where one might grow. The following weeks changed the estate. Willow House filled with workers. Broken glass came down carefully. The residents received new wiring. Therapists reviewed room colors and acoustics. Maisie visited every Saturday to check the sunflower and place one small stone in her parents' future garden. She began speaking to Caleb without checking Celeste's expression first. She still did not hug him. She did not ask him to become her father. Trust appeared in quieter ways. She allowed him to repair the loose ear on her stuffed rabbit. She asked him to attend the kindergarten's family garden day. When a loud truck woke her during dinner, she moved her chair closer to his. Caleb never treated those choices as promises of more. At the estate, he and Celeste developed their own routine. He cooked breakfast on Wednesdays because the household chef visited her mother. The first eggs were uneven but edible. Celeste ate them without criticism. You may admit they are terrible, he said. They are structurally unsound. That is worse. The flavor is acceptable. On Friday evenings, Celeste reviewed the restoration budget at the dining table while Caleb arranged flowers for weekend events. Maisie drew between them. The room began to look lived in. One evening, Caleb noticed Celeste had fallen asleep over a spreadsheet. He removed the tablet from beneath her hand and placed a blanket around her shoulders. Maisie looked up from her drawing. Aunt Celeste does not sleep when strangers are here. I am not a stranger, the child thought. Not all the way. That was the first title Caleb valued. At the end of the second month, Arden Holdings held its annual civic partnership dinner. Celeste invited Caleb as Willow House project director. "This is work," she said. "You sound disappointed." "I am clarifying expectations." "Then I accept the professional invitation." "Good. Are there noodles?" "It is a formal banquet." "That means no." Caleb wore a black suit Theo insisted made him look solvent. At the hotel entrance, reporters recognized him from photographs of the Rowan Works investment announcement. "Mr. Rowan, is it true your father offered you as personal collateral?" Caleb stopped. Celeste's security team moved closer, but he answered, "No, my father has a poor sense of humor. Arden Holdings' investment contains no personal condition, and my employment contract was independently negotiated." "Why do you live at President Arden's estate?" "Because the restoration site is there." "Are you romantically involved?" Caleb looked at Celeste. She did not answer for him. "We are project partners," he said. "Anything beyond that is private and currently undefined." It was the truth. Inside, Celeste spoke quietly. "Thank you for saying undefined. Would you prefer impossible?" "No." They entered the ballroom together. Halfway through dinner, Graham Voss approached. Graham managed Voss Capital, a private equity firm that had tried to purchase Rowan Works' debt at a deep discount before Celeste intervened. He was polished, patient, and skilled at making insults sound like concern. "President Arden," he said, "your newest investment has attracted attention. Successful projects often do." His gaze moved to Caleb. "Mr. Rowan, I admire your family's creative refinancing. We prefer contracts to gift wrapping." Graham smiled. "I heard you have become part of the Arden household." "Temporarily. A useful way to repay a debt." Celeste's expression cooled. "Mr. Rowan directs Willow House because he is qualified. If you want to discuss financing, make an appointment. If you want to insult my project director, find another table." Caleb touched her elbow. "I can answer." She stepped back, allowing him to choose. Caleb faced Graham. "My father made a humiliating joke. I agreed to a job. If you are confused about the difference between a person and an asset, your investors should review every company you manage." Graham's smile disappeared for half a second. Sharp words from the son of a failing company. A delayed company. The housing units are complete, the government payment is scheduled, and Arden's investment protects operations until then. Confident. Documented. Graham lifted his glass. "I look forward to seeing whether the confidence lasts." He walked away. Celeste watched him join a group of shareholders. "He is acquiring small positions in Arden Holdings," she said. "How much?" "Just under 3% through several funds. Legal, but deliberate." "Because you blocked his Rowan Works purchase?" "Possibly. Or because he believes our community division is unprofitable and wants pressure to sell it. Willow House belonged to that division." "Should I worry?" "You should document your project. I will handle shareholders." Caleb remembered the woman who handled everything alone. "If his actions affect Willow House, tell me." "I will." That sounded reluctant. "I am practicing." At the end of the banquet, Celeste was required to greet donors near the stage. Caleb waited beside a quieter wall. A woman in a silver dress approached him. "Caleb Rowan?" "Yes." "I am Amelia Price. We met at the Botanical Design Conference." He remembered her. Amelia operated the largest event flower company in the city and had beaten Rowan and STEM for 3 contracts. "Your hospital garden was excellent," she said. "Your rooftop installation won the award." "It deserved to," Caleb laughed. Amelia handed him a card. "I am bidding on the Riverside Conservatory. If Willow House does not consume your entire life, I would like you as landscape consultant." Before he answered, Celeste joined them. She looked at the business card, then at Amelia. "Ms. Price? President Arden?" No one grabbed anyone's arm. No artificial jealousy war began. Celeste asked, "Would the work conflict with the Willow schedule?" "Only after Phase 1, Amelia said. Celeste turned to Caleb. "Then you should consider it." Amelia smiled. "Your project partner is practical." "Painfully," Caleb said. After Amelia left, he asked, "You are not jealous?" Celeste's eyes narrowed. "Professionally or personally?" "Personally." "That would require the relationship to be defined." "You remembered." "I remember everything." They stood close enough for the answer to feel larger than the words. Caleb did not force it. On the drive home, Maisie's nanny called. The child had developed a fever. The conversation ended every unfinished question in the car. Celeste called the pediatrician before the driver reached the first intersection. Temperature? She asked the nanny. 39.4 Celsius. Is she responsive? Yes, but sleepy. Any shaking? Difficulty breathing? Rash? No. Celeste opened the locked note on her phone containing Maisie's medical history, medication doses, allergies, insurance information, and emergency contacts. Caleb did not tell her to calm down. He asked, "What does the doctor recommend?" "Give the prescribed fever medicine, keep her lightly dressed, and watch for seizure symptoms. If she becomes difficult to wake, struggles to breathe, or seizes, call emergency services immediately." History of seizures? 1 febrile seizure at 18 months. None since. Her hand tightened around the phone. Nathan called me from the hospital that night. I could hear her crying. The car reached the estate. Celeste ran upstairs. Caleb followed only as far as the bedroom door. Maisie lay beneath a light sheet, cheeks flushed. The nanny sat beside her with a cool cloth and a written record of times, temperature, fluids, and medication. Celeste touched the child's forehead. "I am here." Maisie opened her eyes. "Aunt Celeste?" "Right here." Her gaze moved toward the doorway. Caleb came too. "I am here," he said. "My head hurts." "The medicine needs a little time." Caleb crouched near the doorway rather than entering the child's space without invitation. "Would you like me to bring your rabbit?" Maisie nodded. He found the toy under the desk, placed it beside her, and stepped back. The fever dropped slightly after 30 minutes. Maisie drank a few sips of oral rehydration solution and answered questions normally. Then she became unusually drowsy. Celeste tried to wake her fully. Maisie opened her eyes but could not stay awake. Caleb called emergency services. No one carried a feverish child through a thunderstorm. No one guessed at treatment. Paramedics arrived in 8 minutes, assessed her, and transported her to the children's hospital for observation because of her history. Celeste rode in the ambulance. Caleb followed with Maisie's medical bag and stuffed rabbit. At the hospital, doctors examined her, performed appropriate tests, and diagnosed a respiratory virus. Her oxygen level remained normal. She had no seizure. The fever responded to medication and fluids. She would stay overnight for observation. Only after the doctor repeated that Maisie was stable did Celeste sit down. Her hands began to shake. Caleb placed the stuffed rabbit beside the sleeping child, then sat across from Celeste. "Do you want me to call Mr. Harris?" "He is informing the school." "Eleanor?" "I sent her a message. It is midnight in New Zealand." "Your office?" "Hannah cleared tomorrow. Then everything necessary is being handled." Celeste stared at the monitor beside the bed. "The last time I waited in a hospital for someone I loved, Nathan and Julia did not come home." Caleb understood. The fear was not only about a fever. Her body remembered a hallway where hope had ended. "Would you like me to stay?" he asked. "Yes." One clear word. He moved to the chair beside her. Celeste leaned forward, elbows on her knees. "I know a fever is not the same as a highway accident. Fear does not organize itself by logic. I should be stronger for her." "You called the doctor, followed the plan, and brought her here. Strength does not require feeling nothing." Her eyes filled. "Everyone tells me I saved Maisie." "Did you?" "I became guardian 3 days after the funeral. I moved offices. I learned school enrollment, pediatric appointments, trauma therapy, and how to braid hair from videos." "That sounds like saving." "She saved me, too." Celeste looked toward the child. "After Nathan died, I could not imagine going home. Maisie needed breakfast the next morning. She needed socks. She needed someone to explain why her parents were not opening the door." Her voice broke. There was no time to disappear. Caleb did not offer a phrase about everything happening for a reason. Some losses did not need explanations. He held out his hand. Celeste took it. For 2 hours, they sat beside the bed. At 3 in the morning, Maisie woke. Her temperature had fallen below 38. She saw Celeste first, then Caleb. "You both stayed." "Yes," Celeste said. Maisie reached one hand toward her aunt and the other toward Caleb. He looked at her before taking it. "May I?" She nodded. Her small fingers closed around his. "Do not go until morning." "I will stay until morning." It was a promise with a clear end he could keep. Maisie fell asleep again. Celeste watched their joined hands. "She does not trust people quickly." "Neither do you." She has better reasons. Pain is not a competition. At dawn, Celeste fell asleep with her head against Caleb's shoulder. Mr. Harris arrived at 7 carrying clothes, coffee, and breakfast. He stopped in the doorway. Maisie slept peacefully. Celeste rested beside Caleb. Caleb's hand remained trapped beneath the child's fingers. Mr. Harris quietly left the breakfast outside. The hospital discharged Maisie that afternoon after her fever remained controlled and she drank enough fluids. The doctor provided written instructions and follow-up signs. Back at the estate, Caleb carried her bag. Celeste carried Maisie only because the child asked. "Am I heavy?" Maisie whispered. "Very." "Put me down." "Never." The child smiled against her shoulder. Caleb spent the next 2 days working from the estate, so one adult was always nearby. He did not take over medical decisions. He made soup, tracked hydration when asked, and read stories from a chair near the bed. On the 3rd day, Maisie felt well enough to argue about vegetables. Everyone considered that recovery. That Saturday, she attended therapy by video. Near the end of the session, her counselor asked whether she wanted Celeste or Caleb to join for 10 minutes. Maisie chose both. The counselor appeared on a tablet. "Maisie tells me the house feels different," she said. Celeste glanced at Caleb. "Different how?" Maisie hugged her rabbit. "Less echo." "Because of construction?" Caleb asked. "No, because people talk at dinner." The counselor smiled. "She also wants to know what happens when Caleb's work contract ends." Caleb answered carefully. "My project may continue for 9 months. After that, I will return to my apartment unless Celeste and I make another decision." Maisie's face became anxious. The counselor asked, "What decision would you like them to make?" "I want Caleb to visit, even if he does not live here." "That is something you can ask him." Maisie looked at Caleb. "Will you?" "Yes. Whatever happens with the job, I can visit if you and Celeste want me here." Celeste said, "I want you here." The words came before she could hide them. Caleb looked at her. The counselor pretended to review her notes. Maisie asked, "Can I call you Uncle Caleb?" The title contained trust, without replacing anyone. Caleb's throat tightened. "I would be honored." "What does honored mean?" "Very happy, and very careful with something important." "Then you are honored." After the session, Maisie went to draw. Caleb and Celeste remained in the small sitting room. "You said you wanted me here," he said. "Maisie needs consistency." "That is true. And Celeste stopped. "You what?" "I do not want every honest feeling to happen because a crisis removes my ability to hide it." Caleb waited. She stood and walked toward the window. "I liked you when we were children." "Even after the paintings?" "Not immediately." "Reasonable." "When you left for boarding school, Willow House became quiet. I thought I would feel relieved. Instead, I kept waiting for you to appear behind a tree and ruin something." "Romantic." "I am trying." "Continue." Celeste faced him. "I followed your work after university. I knew about your flower shop, the hospital gardens, and your mother's illness. I did not contact you because I assumed you remembered me only as the girl you hurt. I remembered you as more than that." "What did you remember?" "You painted maps for every game. You always gave Nathan the better wooden sword because he let you use his art supplies. You pretended not to like cinnamon candy and stole half of mine." He smiled. "I remembered you sitting beneath the greenhouse table after the rain. I remembered knowing I had done something terrible and being too ashamed to make it about your pain instead of mine." Celeste's eyes lowered. "When Rowan Works needed financing, did you invest because of me? I reviewed the company because of you. I invested because the modular project was financially recoverable. And the job? Willow House needed someone who understood gardens and grief. I knew your work. I also wanted a reason to see you. No revenge. No secret plan to humiliate him. A mixture of business judgment and personal hope, stated clearly. My father believes you purchased me," Caleb said. "Your father believes dramatic metaphors improve accounting. He is often wrong. Do you feel purchased?" Caleb considered the contract, the fair salary, and every opportunity she had given him to leave. "No." "Do you feel obligated to return my feelings because of Rowan Works?" "No." "Then I need to ask the question directly." Celeste's hands were steady, but her voice was not. "Would you like to date me?" Caleb stepped closer. "Yes." Her breath released. "With conditions." She became alarmed. What conditions? Rowan Works remains separate. Willow House decisions stay professional. Maisie is not used to make either of us remain in a relationship. Agreed. And we begin slowly. How slowly? One dinner. We already eat dinner every night. Outside the estate, without budgets, medical emergencies, or a 5-year-old evaluating our behavior. Celeste thought. Tomorrow at 7? I have to close the shop. 7:30. Accepted. They stood close, neither moving away. Is this the moment for a kiss? Celeste asked. Do you want one? Yes, so do I. Caleb touched her cheek. Then footsteps raced down the hallway. Maisie entered carrying a drawing. Uncle Caleb, look! They separated. The child stopped. Were you doing romance? Celeste closed her eyes. What does your therapist teach you? Not that. Theo told me. Caleb made a mental note to threaten his best friend. Maisie held up the drawing. It showed 3 people inside a flower garden. Nathan and Julia appeared as 2 bright stars above them. This is my family now, she said. And this is my first family. They can be in the same picture. Caleb crouched beside her. That is a very important picture. Can it go in Willow House? If you want. Celeste placed one hand over her mouth. Maisie looked at her. Are you crying? A little. Because it is good? Because it is very good. The first date took place at a small night market beside the river. Celeste arrived without security visible, though Mr. Harris had arranged discreet protection. She wore a blue sweater, jeans, and shoes suitable for walking. Caleb bought dumplings. Celeste bought honey cakes. They played a ring toss game and failed so badly the vendor gave Maisie a prize even though Maisie was not present. We should bring her next time, Celeste said. This date is supposed to be without a 5-year-old evaluation. I miss her. So do I. They sat beside the river, eating from paper containers. Caleb asked what Celeste wanted apart from protecting Maisie and running Arden. She had difficulty answering. I want Willow House open, she said. That is work. I want to learn the piano again. Again? My mother made me take lessons. I hated practicing and miss it now. Anything else? Celeste looked at him. A home that does not feel borrowed from dead relatives. That is honest. Your turn. Caleb wanted Rowan and STEM to expand its hospital garden program. He wanted Victor to retire before work destroyed him. He wanted to stop treating responsibility as the price of being loved. And personally, she asked, I want to know what the Caleb face looks like. Maisie's version was inaccurate. Show me. Celeste looked at the river, then back at him. The soft expression that appeared was not exaggerated. It was vulnerable and bright. That face, Caleb said. Satisfied? Not yet. He leaned closer. May I kiss you? Yes. Their first kiss was quiet, warm, and interrupted by no one. When it ended, Celeste kept her forehead against his. Was that slow enough? For tonight. And tomorrow? We communicate. You make romance sound administrative. You asked me out like a contract negotiation. Fair. At the estate, Maisie waited in pajamas despite promising Mr. Harris she would sleep. When they entered, she examined both faces. Did you kiss? Celeste removed her coat. Bed. That means yes. She ran upstairs, laughing. The relationship had been defined. The difficult part would be protecting it from everyone who wanted to define it for them. On Monday morning, the first rumor appeared. A gossip account published the delivery van photograph beside an image of Caleb and Celeste at the river. The headline read, Bankrupt heir repays $18 million debt by becoming CEO's live-in boyfriend. Within an hour, 3 shareholder groups requested explanations. Graham Voss increased his Arden Holdings position to 5%. The private relationship had become a corporate weapon. Celeste called an emergency meeting with Arden's independent directors. Caleb attended only for the portion concerning his contract. The board chair, Priya Shah, placed the gossip article on the screen. The language is offensive, she said. The underlying conflict question is legitimate. President Arden approved an investment in Mr. Rowan's family company, hired him for a project, allowed him to live at her residence, and began a relationship during the contract. Celeste answered without defensiveness. Correct. What safeguards exist? Arden's investment committee approved Rowan Works without my vote. External valuations set the equity percentage. Willow House selected Mr. Rowan after the foundation reviewed 3 candidates. He reports to the community division, not to me. Caleb added, my residence is temporary project housing listed as taxable compensation. My personal attorney reviewed the agreement before I arrived. Priya looked at him. Did President Arden threaten the Rowan investment if you refused employment or romance? No. Promise financial benefit in return for romance? No. Do you feel able to end either relationship independently? Yes. The directors reviewed records for 2 hours. They recommended publishing the investment process, Caleb's project selection criteria, and a conflict disclosure signed by both parties. Celeste agreed. She also offered to transfer Willow House approval authority to Priya until Caleb's contract ended. That decision cost Celeste control over the project she cared about most. It protected Caleb from the appearance that affection determined his work. After the meeting, they stood alone in the elevator. You did not have to surrender approval, he said. I did. You could have asked me to resign from Willow House. That would suggest your career is easier to sacrifice than my authority. Caleb looked at her. I love you. The words escaped before either had planned them. Celeste's eyes widened. The elevator reached the lobby and opened. Neither moved. The doors began to close again. Celeste stopped them with one hand. Say it again. I love you. Her expression became the one Maisie called the Caleb face. I love you too. A security officer waited outside the elevator, uncertain whether to look away. Celeste stepped into the lobby with her usual composure. Caleb followed, smiling like a man whose private life had become impossible to hide. The official records were published that afternoon. They did not erase mockery. They made facts available to anyone interested in truth. Victor Rowan held his own press conference. He stood before Rowan Works' manufacturing site and addressed the delivery photograph. I tied that ribbon, he said. My son did not ask me to. President Arden did not request him as payment. It was an inappropriate joke made by a frightened father who was trying to hide embarrassment with theater. Caleb watched the broadcast from the project office. Victor continued. My company faced a cash flow crisis because I accepted financial risk without adequate reserves. My son is not responsible for my debt. Arden Holdings invested after independent review, and Rowan Works will repay every obligation through the housing project we promised to complete. He looked directly into the camera. Caleb, I am sorry I made your dignity part of my performance. The apology did not change the photograph. It changed what happened next. Caleb called his father. Thank you. Your mother would have made me apologize sooner. She would have removed the ribbon before the van. Also true. 3 weeks later, Rowan Works received the first delayed government payment. The company repaid the bridge interest on schedule, restored supplier accounts, and rehired contractors who had been temporarily released. Arden's equity rose in value. Celeste had not spent $18 million to purchase a husband. She had made a profitable investment that saved real jobs. Graham Voss changed tactics. At the quarterly shareholder forum, he proposed selling Arden's community properties, including Willow House, to reduce what he called sentimental spending. The company exists to produce returns, he said, not to finance the chief executive's private grief. Celeste sat at the center of the stage. 3 months earlier, the sentence might have pushed her into a colder defense. Now, she answered with evidence. The community division produced a 6% operating return last year through rehabilitation contracts, tax partnerships, and long-term leases. Willow House is funded through the Arden Foundation and restricted charitable capital. Selling it would require returning grants and breaking counseling service agreements. Priya displayed the audit. Mr. Voss's proposal would create a short-term cash gain and a larger legal loss. Shareholders questioned both sides. No one was silenced. When the vote came, 78% rejected the sale. Graham retained his shares. He also retained his anger. 2 days later, a man carrying a professional camera appeared outside Maisie's school. He told the receptionist he had permission from Arden Holdings to photograph a family feature. The school checked the authorized visitor list. His name was absent. Staff kept Maisie inside, contacted Celeste, and called police when the man refused to leave. He did not reach the child. He did not impersonate a relative or attempt to remove her. He was detained for trespassing and questioned about the false authorization letter. Celeste arrived first. Caleb reached the school 10 minutes later. Maisie sat in the counselor's room drawing circles. She looked up. The cameraman said he wanted my picture. Celeste crouched beside her. The school did exactly what it should. They kept you safe. Was he bad? He made an unsafe choice and lied about permission. Why did he want me? Celeste looked at Caleb.
They could not tell a child every corporate detail. They also would not pretend nothing happened. Some people want photographs because our family is in the news, Caleb said. That does not give them the right to take one. Did I do something wrong? Nothing, Celeste said immediately. Will he come back? The police and school are making sure he cannot. Maisie reached for Celeste's hand. After a moment, she reached for Caleb's too. He did not promise that no frightening person would ever appear. We have a plan, he told her. You stay with teachers you know. You never leave with someone who is not on the list. You can ask to call us at any time. Even if you are working? Anytime. The school reviewed security with every family without naming Maisie. Visitor verification became stricter. Counseling staff gave children age-appropriate safety lessons that did not make them afraid of every stranger. At home that evening, Caleb told Celeste everything he knew. He did not hide the problem to protect her concentration. She did not rush alone to confront Graham. They gave the letter, school footage, and all communications to police and Arden's legal team. The photographer eventually admitted a public relations subcontractor had hired him. Payment came from Meridian Strategies, a consulting firm working for one of Graham's investment funds. That connection was suspicious. It was not yet proof Graham personally authorized the lie. Ben, who served as outside counsel for the Arden Foundation, warned them. Do not accuse him publicly until investigators establish the chain. Celeste looked at the report. He targeted a child. Someone connected to his fund targeted access to a child. Precision matters. Caleb placed one hand over hers. We follow the evidence. She nodded. And we keep Maisie away from headlines. Hannah coordinated a statement that mentioned only an unauthorized photographer stopped by school procedures. Maisie's name and image were excluded. The gossip cycle moved on within 2 days. The family did not. Maisie slept in Celeste's room for a week. Caleb returned to the West guest room each night, even after he and Celeste began dating. Physical closeness would happen on their terms, not because crisis blurred every boundary. One night, he found Celeste awake in the hallway. She is sleeping, Celeste whispered. I cannot. Tea? Something stronger. Hot chocolate. That is not stronger. More cinnamon. They sat in the kitchen until midnight. I wanted to destroy Voss Capital today, Celeste admitted. Reasonable feeling. Bad legal strategy. I imagined purchasing every creditor he has and calling them during breakfast. Creative. Then I imagined what Maisie would see if I turned fear into revenge. What did you decide? I want her to see adults use evidence, laws, and boundaries. That is less satisfying than breakfast. Much. Caleb lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. I am proud of you. Celeste leaned against him. I still want to ruin his breakfast. You may send him terrible coffee after the investigation. Anonymous? Of course not. Accountability. The next weekend, Eleanor Moore arrived from New Zealand. She was Julia's mother, a retired school principal with silver hair and a habit of asking questions before removing her coat. At the estate entrance, she embraced Maisie for a long time. Grandma Ellie! Look how tall you are. I grew 2 centimeters. Impossible. I asked you to wait. Maisie showed her the rabbit, the project drawings, and the sunflower seeds stored in a labeled envelope. Only after the child left for bed did Eleanor speak to Caleb. You are the man from the gift box. Unfortunately. The internet rarely improves a story. Also true. She asked about his work, Rowan works, the relationship, and why Maisie called him Uncle Caleb. He answered every question directly. Do you intend to replace Nathan? Eleanor asked. No one can. Do you intend to adopt Maisie? Celeste is pursuing adoption now. I am her boyfriend of 6 weeks. It would be irresponsible for me to promise a legal role before our relationship and Maisie's wishes are ready. Eleanor studied him. That is not a romantic answer. It is an honest one. Good. She turned toward Celeste. And you? Celeste had prepared for this conversation for years. I want to adopt her. I also want her to keep photographs, stories, her connection to you, and everything that belongs to Nathan and Julia. I will never ask her to call me mother. Eleanor's eyes filled. Julia wrote in her guardianship letter that she wanted Maisie with you if anything happened. Celeste froze. What letter? Eleanor removed the sealed envelope from her bag. The attorney found it in their safe last month while closing a property account.
Celeste opened the envelope carefully. Julia's handwriting filled 2 pages. She wrote that Celeste was the person Maisie trusted most after her parents. She asked Celeste to raise the child with truth, laughter, and no pressure to stop grieving. At the end, Nathan added 1 sentence. Little sister, you have always loved more deeply than you know how to say. Celeste could not finish reading aloud. Eleanor held her. For once, Celeste did not apologize for crying. The adoption process moved forward with Eleanor's full consent. A family specialist interviewed Celeste, reviewed Maisie's home and school support, and spoke to Maisie with her counselor present. Caleb was interviewed because he lived in the household. He did not describe himself as a father. He described himself as a trusted adult committed to remaining truthful.
At the final hearing 4 months later, the judge asked Maisie whether she understood that adoption would make Celeste her legal parent without changing who Nathan and Julia were. Maisie nodded. I have a mommy who died and an aunt who stayed. What would you like to call your aunt after today? Maisie looked at Celeste. Mama C. Celeste covered her mouth. Is that all right? Maisie asked. Celeste knelt beside her. It is more than all right. The judge finalized the adoption. Maisie's legal surname became Ardenmore, preserving both the family raising her and the mother who gave birth to her. Outside the courthouse, Eleanor gave her a necklace containing a small photograph of Nathan and Julia. Celeste gave her a key to the memorial garden. Caleb gave her the envelope of sunflower seeds. Now I have 2 families? Maisie asked. Eleanor smiled. 1 family with many branches. Maisie turned to Caleb. Are you a branch? If you want me to be. She slipped her hand into his. A strong branch. Caleb had never been given a better title. That night, the family held a small dinner. No business leaders attended. Victor came with a cake shaped like a sunflower and apologized when the icing leaned to one side. Theo and Hannah brought flowers. Mr. Harris made a toast. Celeste sat beside Caleb beneath warm kitchen lights. You helped us reach this day, she said. You had already built the home. You made it less echo. He smiled. Maisie's words. She was correct. Their relationship grew stronger without asking the child to guarantee it. Caleb's 6-month residence agreement approached its end. Willow House's counseling rooms and art studio were nearly complete. The greenhouse still required 3 months of work, exactly as his revised schedule predicted. Caleb received his final residential notice. He placed it on Celeste's desk. My contract housing ends in 2 weeks. Her expression became unreadable. I know. Do you want me to leave? No. Do you want me to stay? Yes. As project director? As my partner. Clear questions, clear answers. Caleb took a lease from his folder. I kept my apartment. I know. How? Your address is in the disclosure file. Less concerning. I think we should spend time there too, he said. Maisie should see that I have a life outside this estate. You should see whether you can survive a kitchen with 1 drawer that does not close. Are you asking me to visit? Regularly. And the estate? I would like to stay several nights each week, if Mr. Harris approves. The estate manager appeared at the door. I approve. Caleb looked at him. Were you listening? The door was open. Celeste signed no contract. She simply gave Caleb a key. He kept his apartment and accepted the estate as another home. Neither person had to disappear into the other's life. Meanwhile, the investigation into Meridian Strategies continued. Financial records finally connected the unauthorized school visit to Graham's personal chief of staff. The chief of staff had approved the false authorization letter and requested images showing Maisie with Caleb, intending to support the narrative that Celeste was using corporate money to purchase a replacement family. Investigators found emails forwarding the plan to Graham. His reply contained 4 words. Proceed. Keep me insulated. Celeste read the email once. Then she handed the tablet back to Ben. What happens now? Police have enough for forgery, conspiracy to obtain unauthorized images of a minor, and obstruction related to the false authorization. Financial regulators are separately reviewing whether Voss used the resulting gossip to influence his share purchases. Will he be arrested? Prosecutors decide charges.
We provide evidence and cooperate. Caleb sat beside her in the library. Maisie was at school under updated security procedures. Eleanor had returned to New Zealand, but joined family calls every Sunday. The adults could finally speak without protecting a child from overhearing. "Do we announce the evidence?" Caleb asked. "Not before charges," Ben said. "Public accusations could compromise the case." Celeste hated waiting. She waited anyway. 2 days later, Graham requested a private meeting. Ben advised recording it with consent and attending as counsel. Graham entered Arden Tower without his usual confidence. He looked at Celeste, Caleb, and Ben seated on the same side of the table. "This has gone too far," Graham said. Celeste answered, "A man using a forged letter approached a kindergarten. He was a photographer, not a kidnapper. That distinction does not make the conduct acceptable. My chief of staff exceeded instructions." Ben placed the printed email on the table. "Proceed. Keep me insulated." Graham's face tightened. That referred to a media strategy. The media strategy included unauthorized access to a child. Graham looked at Caleb. "You understand how this works? A story pressures management. Nobody intended harm." Caleb remained calm. Maisie spent a week afraid of cameras. Harm occurred. "What do you want?" Celeste could have demanded his company, his shares, or public humiliation. "Nothing from you personally," she said. "The legal process will continue. Arden will seek costs and a protective order. Your investors can decide whether you remain qualified to manage their money. If I sell my Arden position and withdraw the community proposal, will you end the complaint?" "No." "Then why would I cooperate?" Ben answered. "Because cooperation may be considered by prosecutors, while further obstruction will also be documented." Graham stood. "You think this makes you righteous?" Celeste looked at him without anger. "No, it makes me responsible for protecting a child without becoming you." The meeting ended. Graham was charged 3 weeks later with conspiracy connected to forged access documents and unlawful surveillance. His chief of staff faced related charges and agreed to cooperate. Voss Capital's investment committee removed Graham from active management pending trial. Its funds sold the Arden position gradually under regulatory supervision, preventing market manipulation. Months later, Graham entered a plea agreement. He accepted a suspended custodial sentence subject to compliance, substantial fines, community service, a multi-year restriction from managing regulated funds, and a protective order keeping him away from Maisie's school and family. The chief of staff received a reduced sentence for cooperation. No mysterious rival vanished between chapters. The consequences were specific, public, and complete. Celeste did not purchase Voss Capital for revenge. She did not destroy innocent employees to punish one executive. She let evidence separate guilty choices from everyone else. The board appointed an independent privacy committee and funded security training for every community program involving children. Caleb attended the first session. Maisie's experience became a reason to improve systems without becoming content for a campaign. At home, she knew only that the cameraman and the people who sent him were legally forbidden from returning. That was enough information for a 5-year-old. With the corporate conflict resolved, Willow House entered its final stage. The counseling rooms opened first, exactly 6 months after Caleb arrived. Families used private spaces overlooking the garden. Children painted in the restored studio. The foundation offered grief groups without charge and trained schools to support students after loss. The greenhouse remained closed behind temporary barriers. Reporters asked whether the delay represented failure. Caleb answered, "A safe opening in 9 months is success. An unsafe opening in 6 would be negligence." Celeste watched the interview from the back. She no longer approved his decisions. She trusted them. At Rowan Works, the modular housing project finally reached completion. The government released the remaining payment after inspection. Workers received delayed bonuses. Suppliers were repaid with interest. Arden's equity produced a return above its original forecast. Victor invited Caleb to the factory celebration. 8,000 employees gathered between completed housing units. Victor stood on a small stage. 6 months ago, I believed my life's work was ending, he said. I blamed delayed payment, banks, and bad timing. All were part of the crisis.
But leadership means admitting that I accepted risk without enough protection for the people depending on me. He announced a permanent employee reserve fund and an independent risk committee. Then he invited Celeste onto the stage. President Arden did not rescue us because she wanted my son. She invested because this team built something worth finishing. The crowd applauded. Victor looked at Caleb. My son reminded me that responsibility is not the same as ownership. I do not own his future because he helped carry my mistake. After the ceremony, Victor offered Caleb a folder. Inside was a proposal to become Rowan Works' Chief Development Officer. You always planned to join the company after your mother died, Victor said. I planned to help you. Same thing, I thought. Not anymore. Victor nodded. The offer is real, not an obligation. Caleb reviewed the role. It paid more than his flower shop. It included authority over public spaces in every housing project. It could connect his garden work to thousands of homes. It could also consume the independent life he had built. I need time, he said. Take it. You are not going to wrap the contract around me? Your sense of humor is cruel. Inherited. Caleb discussed the offer with Theo first. They sat behind Rowan and Stem after closing. If you take it, do you leave the shop? Theo asked. I do not want to. Then propose a structure where you do not. You make everything sound simple. It is not simple. It is negotiation. Amelia Price provided another possibility. Her Riverside Conservatory bid had been approved. She wanted Rowan and Stem as long-term therapeutic landscape partner rather than only Caleb as consultant. The contract would allow the flower shop to hire 2 designers and expand its hospital program. Caleb had spent years believing every choice required abandoning one duty for another. He developed a third plan. Rowan Works would contract Rowan and Stem to design shared gardens for its housing projects. Caleb would serve as external creative director, not company heir. Independent architects and resident councils would approve each plan. Theo would become managing director of the expanded studio. Victor accepted, after arguing about the word external for 20 minutes. Caleb preserved his independence and helped the company. Celeste learned of the decision last. You spoke to Theo, Amelia, your father, and 2 attorneys before me, she said. Professionally, you have a conflict. Personally? Personally, I wanted to bring you a decision rather than ask you to solve it. She thought about that. I am proud of you. Do you dislike it? I dislike having no useful advice. You can help choose the studio's new coffee machine. I have extensive qualifications. Their lives expanded without one swallowing the other. Caleb spent 3 nights each week at the estate and 2 at his apartment. Celeste visited the apartment often enough to claim 1 bathroom shelf and discover the broken kitchen drawer. The first evening she stayed, she opened it. The entire drawer fell onto the floor. You were warned, Caleb said. Why have you not repaired this? It only falls if opened. That is not repair. It is a usage policy. Celeste ordered no replacement. The next day, she arrived with a screwdriver and watched a repair video. They fixed the drawer together. It remained slightly crooked. Celeste considered that an insult. Caleb considered it character. Maisie spent occasional weekends there after her counselor agreed that sleeping in another safe home could help reduce fear of separation. The first night, she carried 3 bags and the stuffed rabbit. I am only staying until Sunday, she said. Your aunt packs the same way, Caleb replied. Celeste opened the refrigerator. There is no yogurt. There are eggs. That does not help breakfast. They walked to the neighborhood market together. No household staff followed. No formal dining table waited. Maisie chose cereal containing too much sugar. Celeste objected. Caleb supported the objection until Maisie negotiated 1 small box for Saturday. The apartment felt crowded. It also felt alive. At bedtime, Maisie stood in the guest room doorway. Uncle Caleb? Yes? If you marry Mama C, will this be my home too? Celeste froze behind her. Caleb answered slowly. If we marry, we will choose a home together. You will help choose it because you are part of the family. Are you going to marry? We have not decided. Do you love her? Yes. Celeste's eyes widened. He had told her before. Hearing him tell Maisie made it different. Does she love you? Celeste crouched beside the child. Yes. Then why have you not decided? Because love is the beginning of that decision, not the only part. Maisie frowned. Adults make easy things difficult.
Constantly, Caleb said. After the child slept, Celeste stood beside his kitchen window. Do you want to marry me? No game, no trap. Caleb joined her. Yes. Soon? Not because the debt is repaid, not because Maisie wants one house. Because we are ready. How will we know? We discuss money, work, Maisie's guardianship, where to live, whether we want children, and what happens if either person's life changes. A marriage due diligence review. Romantic. Very. They spent the next 2 months having those conversations. Celeste wanted one more child someday, but feared pregnancy because stress had affected her health in university. Caleb wanted children, but would accept a life with only Maisie. Neither wanted Maisie to believe a biological baby could replace her. They discussed a prenuptial agreement, shared expenses, inheritance, and how to protect Maisie's trust. Caleb retained his own attorney. Celeste did not offer him a title at Arden. They toured homes between the estate, city, and Maisie's school. The conversations did not remove romance. They made a proposal meaningful rather than impulsive. In the 8th month of Willow House restoration, the greenhouse passed final structural inspection. Caleb planned the memorial garden planting for the following Saturday. Maisie placed the first sunflower seed into the soil. Eleanor watched by video. Victor dug holes badly. Theo corrected him. Amelia donated rare climbing roses. Mr. Harris brought lemonade and pretended he had not supervised every detail. Celeste planted lavender beneath Nathan and Julia's memorial plaque. The plaque did not say they were gone too soon. It contained a sentence from Julia's guardianship letter. Love does not ask grief to disappear. It gives grief somewhere safe to grow. When everyone left for lunch, Caleb asked Celeste to remain. He led her into the restored art studio. 4 paintings stood along the wall. They showed Willow House in spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Celeste stopped. My competition series. Not a replacement, Caleb said. I cannot recreate what I destroyed. He had worked from old photographs, the surviving winter watercolor, and Celeste's descriptions. His paintings were simpler than hers, filled with imperfect lines and carefully preserved memories. I wanted to finish the apology with work, not words. Celeste touched the spring painting. You included the dragon. Every garden requires one. At the center of the studio stood a small table holding a ring. Celeste looked at him. Is this part of the project budget? Rejected by accounting. Caleb took her hands. I arrived here tied in ribbon because my father thought debt could be made into a joke. You cut through that idea before the ribbon touched the ground. You gave me the freedom to leave, and that freedom is why staying became my choice. He knelt. You are not purchasing my future. I am offering it. Celeste's eyes filled. Celeste Arden, will you marry me and keep building a family where every person is chosen, heard, and free? She looked at the paintings, the garden beyond the window, and the man who had learned the difference between attention and care. Yes. Caleb slid the ring onto her finger. It was a simple gold band with a small green stone the color of Willow House glass. Celeste pulled him to his feet and kissed him. Maisie's voice came through the open door. Did she say yes? Caleb looked over Celeste's shoulder. Maisie, Victor, Theo, and Mr. Harris were crowded in the hallway. You were supposed to be at lunch. Victor held a sandwich. We brought lunch here. Maisie ran toward them, then stopped before throwing herself into the embrace. May I hug both of you? Celeste opened one arm. Please. Maisie joined them. Does this mean we choose a house now? Eventually, Caleb said. And the wedding? Eventually. And can I call you Dad? The question silenced the room. Caleb crouched to her height. Do you want to call me that because we are getting married? Or because it feels right to you? Maisie thought carefully. Not today. Everyone waited. I want to call you Dad after you promise in court that you will stay my family too. Mama C promised in court. Caleb's eyes burned. That is a wise decision. Are you sad? No. I am honored. Very happy and very careful? Exactly. She hugged him again. Caleb remained Uncle Caleb. The future title would be chosen with the same care as every other part of their family. The evidence chain was complete. The engagement did not turn the Arden estate into a wedding factory overnight. For the first month, nothing changed except that Celeste occasionally looked at the green stone on her finger during meetings and forgot what sentence she had been about to say. The first time it happened, Priya Shah closed the financial report and waited. You were discussing the community division's operating margin. Celeste blinked. I know. You have been staring at your hand for 20 seconds. The ring reflects light. Priya glanced at the windowless conference room. Remarkable. Hannah covered a laugh with a cough. Celeste resumed the meeting with her usual precision, but the story traveled through the building before lunch. By evening, the employees who had spent 3 years watching their CEO and her quiet consultant circle each other had created a private office pool about which one of them would cry first at the wedding. Mr. Harris placed money on Caleb. Theo chose Celeste. Maisie asked whether happy crying counted as losing. No one could answer her. Caleb and Celeste approached the marriage the same way they had approached the first honest stage of their relationship. Slowly, clearly, and with more paperwork than Victor believed romance should require. They hired separate lawyers for the prenuptial agreement. Caleb's attorney was an older woman named Ruth Alvarez, who read the draft twice and then told him that refusing independent advice would not make him noble. It would only make him unprepared. Celeste's attorney agreed. The agreement protected Arden Holdings, Rowan, and STEM, Caleb's future design income, Celeste's personal property, and Maisie's inheritance. It also established that any home they bought together would belong to both of them, regardless of which account supplied the larger share of the purchase price. Caleb insisted on one additional clause. If the marriage ended, neither adult could use access to Maisie as leverage against the other. Any future guardianship or adoption rights would be handled solely according to the child's welfare and the court's judgment. Celeste read the clause in silence. You are planning how to protect her from us, she said. I'm planning how to protect her if we ever become people we don't recognize. Celeste signed beside him. Then we will recognize each other again before that happens. They also began family counseling. The counselor, Dr. Morales, was the same specialist who had helped Maisie process the deaths of Nathan and Julia. She did not let romance erase practical questions. Caleb, what happens if you and Celeste disagree about discipline? We discuss it privately. We do not make Maisie choose a side. Celeste, what happens if Maisie compares Caleb to Nathan? Celeste glanced toward the observation window where Maisie was building a paper village with another therapist. I tell her that loving Caleb does not replace her father. She is allowed to miss Nathan without protecting my feelings. And what happens if she never calls Caleb dad? Caleb answered first. Then I remain Caleb. The work is the same. Dr. Morales wrote something in her notebook. That is the healthiest answer you have given today. What was the least healthy? Your belief that assembling one bookshelf qualifies you to renovate a child's bedroom. Celeste nodded solemnly. I told him. They were not renovating a bedroom yet because they had not chosen a home. The Arden estate was beautiful, secure, and full of history. It was also 40 minutes from Maisie's school, 50 minutes from Rowan and STEM, and large enough that family members could avoid one another for days. Caleb's apartment was warm and convenient, but it had 2 bedrooms, no garden, and a kitchen whose oven door required a chair to remain closed. Celeste proposed buying a mansion halfway between the office and the school. Caleb proposed repairing the oven. Maisie rejected both plans. She drew a map. The map contained a yellow house, a blue door, 3 bedrooms, 1 guest room for grandmother Eleanor, a studio for painting, a work table for flowers, a garden, a tree large enough for a swing, and a small dragon living under the stairs. The dragon is negotiable, Caleb said. No, Maisie replied. The swimming pool is negotiable. They found the yellow house 6 weeks later. It was not actually yellow when they first saw it. The exterior was gray, the roof needed repair, and the back garden consisted mainly of weeds and 1 stubborn pear tree. But it stood 15 minutes from Maisie's school and 20 minutes from both Arden Holdings and Rowan and STEM. It had a sunlit room that could become Celeste's studio, a detached workshop Caleb could use for design, and a narrow cupboard beneath the stairs. Maisie opened the cupboard and whispered, Perfect. The realtor looked uncertain. For storage? For the dragon. Celeste bought the house jointly with Caleb under the terms they had agreed. Caleb contributed an amount he could afford from his studio earnings. Celeste contributed more, without pretending otherwise. Their ownership remained equal because the decision was part of a shared life, not a commercial investment. Victor tried to give them the remaining amount as an engagement gift. Caleb declined. Victor looked injured. You let me pay for dinner. Dinner did not have 4 bedrooms. It was an expensive dinner. You ordered the wine.
Instead, they allowed Victor to pay for the pear tree's inspection and treatment after an arborist discovered disease in 2 branches. Victor spent the next month telling everyone he had saved the family tree. Caleb painted the house yellow. Celeste painted one wall and discovered that executive authority did not prevent paint from entering her hair. Maisie took photographs. Mr. Harris framed one for the estate kitchen. They moved in gradually. First came books and clothes. Then the chipped blue mugs from Caleb's apartment. Then Celeste's winter watercolor, protected behind museum glass. Nathan and Julia's photographs went in Maisie's room and in the family hallway, not hidden away as relics of a life that had ended. Caleb built the swing with professional help after Dr. Morales' bookshelf comment. He also built the dragon from painted wood and placed it under the stairs with a tiny brass sign that read, "Property of Maisie Arden Moore." On their first night in the house, all 3 ate noodles on the living room floor because the dining table had not arrived. Maisie looked around at the boxes. "Is this home now?" Celeste considered the question. "It is becoming home." Caleb handed Maisie a pair of chopsticks. Homes are verbs before they are nouns. That sounds like something people say when they forget to unpack plates. Celeste laughed so hard she dropped a noodle. The wedding date was set for the following spring, 10 months after the proposal. That gave Willow House time to reach its full opening, allowed Rowan Works to complete the first housing phase, and gave their family time to live together before promising permanence in front of 200 witnesses. It also gave the press time to lose interest. The wedding was not a corporate event. Arden Holdings issued one sentence confirming the engagement and refused all sponsorship requests. Celeste rejected a luxury magazine's offer to pay for exclusive photographs. Caleb rejected Victor's suggestion that the reception could double as a launch for Rowan Works' new garden homes. "I was joking," Victor said. No one believed him. The engagement did not make every day easy. One evening, Caleb came home late after 3 consecutive site meetings. He had promised to help Maisie finish a model of the solar system for school. By the time he arrived, she was asleep beside a half-painted Saturn. Celeste was waiting in the kitchen. "You could have called." "My phone died." There were phones at all 3 sites. Caleb placed his keys on the counter. "I lost track of time." Celeste's expression cooled. "That is the answer my father used whenever he missed Nathan's concerts." The comparison struck harder than she intended. Caleb's shoulders tightened. "I am not your father." "I know." "Then don't sentence me for his mistakes." They stood in the yellow kitchen, both wounded and both tempted to retreat into the habits that had cost them years. Caleb reached for the refrigerator door, then stopped. "I am angry," he said. Celeste folded her arms. "So am I." "I want 10 minutes to calm down. I am not leaving the conversation." Her arms loosened. 10 minutes. He went into the garden. When he returned, Celeste had made tea. "I should not have compared you to him," she said. "I was afraid that Maisie would learn not to trust promises." I turned the fear into an accusation. "I should have called from this site. Being busy explains it. It doesn't repair it." They agreed that either of them could ask their assistants to relay urgent family messages. Caleb rescheduled the next morning and helped Maisie finish Saturn before school. The planet had one uneven ring. Maisie called it realistic. Another disagreement came when Celeste arranged for a security car to follow Caleb after Graham's plea agreement received national coverage. Caleb noticed within 12 minutes. He called her from a traffic light. "There is a black sedan behind me. It belongs to Arden Security." "I did not agree to that." "The threat assessment changed." "Then you discussed the threat assessment with me." Celeste was silent. She had not ordered the car because she doubted Caleb's judgment. She had ordered it because for 3 years, one sudden telephone call had divided her life into before and after. The possibility of another call had lived beneath her ribs ever since. But fear did not transform surveillance into care. She recalled the car. That evening, the head of security presented both of them with the assessment. They chose temporary protection for public events, a panic application on their phones, and no unannounced following. Celeste apologized. Caleb accepted without pretending the problem had never existed. Their relationship became stronger not because conflict disappeared, but because neither person treated conflict as evidence that love had failed. At Willow House, construction entered its final phase. The old West Wing became 8 private counseling rooms with soundproof walls and windows overlooking the garden. The central greenhouse became a communal studio. The library held books about grief,
trauma, caregiving, and rebuilding life after loss.
A family kitchen allowed visitors to cook meals together under supervision, because Dr. Morales believed memory often returned through taste before words. The building also contained practical spaces, accessible bathrooms, a nursing room, staff offices, a small medical suite, and a quiet sensory room for children who needed the world to become softer for a while. Caleb refused to fill every corner with flowers. "People need space to breathe," he told the design team. "A garden is not a competition for attention." He used plants with low allergen risk near the counseling rooms and kept strongly scented varieties outside. Paths were wide enough for wheelchairs. Raised beds allowed children and elderly visitors to garden without kneeling. Shade structures were positioned after a full seasonal light study. Amelia reviewed the accessibility plan and found 2 slopes that exceeded the recommended grade. Caleb changed them without defensiveness. "I was hoping you would argue," she said. "I only argue when I am right. That is not how I remember university." University Caleb had poorer data. Their professional partnership became one of the project's strengths. Amelia specialized in conservatory engineering. Caleb specialized in landscapes designed around human memory. Neither needed to become a jealous rival to make the other interesting. Theo managed Rowan and STEM's expansion carefully. They hired 4 full-time employees, 2 apprentices, and a horticultural therapist. Caleb refused 3 national franchise offers because speed would have turned their work into a decorative product rather than a service. Instead, they created a training program for community gardens attached to Rowan Works housing developments. Residents helped choose what was planted. Some selected vegetables, some wanted flowers from countries they had left. Some wanted low-maintenance courtyards where children could play. The first development's garden opened beneath a row of apartment balconies. Victor stood at the edge while a retired teacher showed 3 children how to plant beans. "I thought the garden would increase the resale value," he admitted. Caleb looked at the children. "It probably will. That is not why you built it." "No." Victor watched a woman carry basil into her new apartment. "I am learning that value has more than one column. Careful, you will ruin your reputation." Victor smiled. He had started therapy too, though he described it as executive coaching with emotional invoices. The apology he had made in public was only a beginning. Privately, he and Caleb returned to years of conversations they had avoided. Victor acknowledged that after Caleb's mother died, he had often treated his son as a witness to his own grief instead of a child experiencing grief too. He had turned work into shelter and jokes into escape routes. Caleb did not forgive everything in a single scene. Some memories remained sharp. Some apologies required repetition followed by changed behavior. But Victor stopped demanding instant absolution, and that made trust possible. Eleanor became part of their weekly life through video calls and monthly visits. She taught Maisie to make Julia's lemon cake. The first cake sank because Maisie opened the oven 6 times. The second leaned to one side. The third was nearly perfect. No one burned an egg. When Caleb made breakfast, he used a timer. When Celeste cooked, she read recipes the way she read acquisition documents, with annotations and contingency plans. Maisie declared Theo the worst cook after he confused salt with sugar in a pancake mixture. Theo argued that the containers were poorly labeled. Maisie labeled them for him in letters large enough to read from the garden. As the wedding approached, the adoption question returned. Caleb had lived with Maisie for 6 months and known her for nearly 9. He attended parent-teacher conferences with Celeste, learned the difference between her quiet moods, and knew that she hated sock seams but loved thunderstorms. He had also completed a parenting course, a background check, and the first stage of a court-ordered home study. Still, he refused to let the wedding automatically decide her legal future. Dr. Morales met with Maisie alone. Eleanor received separate legal advice. A court-appointed advocate spoke with Celeste, Caleb, and Maisie. Nathan and Julia's estate documents were reviewed. The goal was not to prove that the family loved one another. It was to confirm that the adults understood the permanent responsibilities attached to the love they were claiming. At dinner one night, Maisie asked, "If Uncle Caleb adopts me, does that erase Daddy Nathan?" Caleb set down his fork. "No, but my paper will say he is my father," Celeste answered carefully. "The paper will say Caleb is also legally responsible for caring for you. It will not change who Nathan was." "Will my name change?" "Only if you want it to," Caleb said. "I don't." "Then it remains Arden Moore." "Will I have to call you Dad?"
No. What if I call you Dad sometimes and Uncle Caleb other times? I will answer to both. What if I am angry and call you Caleb Rowan? He nodded. Then I will know the situation is serious. Maisie returned to her dinner. I want the paper. I don't want to choose the word yet. Caleb's voice caught. That is completely fine. The wedding would happen first. Afterward, the court could consider a step-parent adoption petition with every safeguard in place. There would be no miraculous approval completed in one afternoon and no child used as proof of romantic destiny. There would be interviews, reports, consent, waiting, and a judge who asked difficult questions. To Caleb, the slow process made the promise more meaningful. Meanwhile, Graham Voss attempted one final public maneuver. His attorneys had resolved the criminal case, but civil claims from Arden Holdings, the school, and several shareholders remained. In a recorded interview, he called himself the victim of an emotional CEO who had used corporate resources to destroy a business rival. The interviewer asked whether he had authorized surveillance of a 5-year-old child. Graham said he had authorized market research. The chief of staff's emails appeared on the screen behind him. The interview lasted 11 more minutes. By the end, 3 organizations had removed him from advisory positions he no longer disclosed, and his own public relations firm had terminated its contract. Celeste did not celebrate. She sat with Priya and the legal team and approved a settlement framework that prioritized restitution and enforceable restrictions over endless publicity. Graham would pay the school district's security costs, fund a multi-year child privacy training program administered by an independent nonprofit, relinquish any remaining claim against Arden Holdings, and comply with a protective order barring contact with the family. The company would pursue him personally, not his former fund's junior employees or investors who had not participated. Some people will say we were too gentle, Anna warned. Celeste signed the document. Consequences are not measured by how loudly we enjoy them. Caleb read the agreement later that evening. Complete? Complete, she said. The antagonist did not disappear between chapters. He did not return with a secret army or a long-lost claim to Maisie. His actions were investigated, proven, punished, and closed. The family turned the page because the law had finished writing the sentence. On the morning Willow House opened, rain covered the garden. Caleb stood beneath the greenhouse roof and watched drops strike the glass above the 4 seasonal paintings. For a moment, he remembered a ruined portfolio, a frightened girl, and the careless boy he had been. Celeste joined him. You are thinking too loudly. I thought that was your specialty. Only when you refused to speak. Outside, guests arrived beneath umbrellas. Families, therapists, employees, reporters, donors, teachers, and residents from the new Rowan Works development filled the restored halls. Maisie wore yellow rain boots and carried a basket of paper flowers made by children at her school. The opening ceremony contained no giant ribbon. That had been Caleb's only firm request. Instead, each person received a seed paper leaf and added it to a temporary tree beside the entrance. After the ceremony, the leaves would be planted in the community beds. Priya spoke first about governance and funding. Dr. Morales spoke about grief. Eleanor described Julia's belief that care should never be hidden behind grand language. Victor announced a permanent maintenance grant from Rowan Works and, for once, did not mention branding. Celeste stepped to the microphone. She looked at Nathan and Julia's photographs on the wall. For years, I believed strength meant carrying every loss alone. I built walls, called them standards, and congratulated myself when no one could reach me. This house taught me a different definition. Strength is creating a door, opening it, and trusting that the people who enter will help you carry what cannot be carried alone. She invited Maisie forward. Maisie placed the final paper flower beneath her parents' photograph. This one is for people who still love someone they can't see, she said. No one spoke for several seconds. Then, Caleb began clapping. The room joined him. Willow House opened fully 9 months after construction began. Every promised room was complete. Every license had been approved. Its funding came from a protected endowment, service partnerships, and transparent grants rather than Celeste's mood or a convenient final scene donation. In its first week, 34 families used its programs. In its first month, the waiting list forced the foundation to add evening sessions. In its first year,
The model would be studied for expansion to 2 other cities. But on opening day, the most important moment occurred in the family kitchen. Maisie, Caleb, and Celeste stood around a bowl of cake mixture while Eleanor supervised. Caleb reached for the sugar. Maisie blocked him. "Read the label." "I can read. That is what Uncle Theo said." Caleb read the label aloud. "Sugar. Approved." Celeste leaned against his shoulder. The photographer captured them from the doorway only after Maisie nodded permission. The image later appeared in the Foundation's annual report, not on a tabloid cover. Under it were 5 words.
Care begins with asking permission. Spring arrived. The pear tree flowered, and the wedding day began without a runaway bride, a hostile takeover, a secret engagement, or anyone being delivered in a box. The ceremony took place in the Willow House garden. Celeste had originally suggested the estate ballroom in case of rain. Caleb had suggested the greenhouse. Maisie had studied both proposals and chosen the garden because the pear tree at their yellow house could not attend. To compensate, she carried a small branch from it in her bouquet. The guest list remained smaller than the number of people Victor attempted to invite. Arden employees who had known the couple for years sat beside Rowan Works engineers, Willow House staff, shop customers, teachers, and friends. The front row included Eleanor, Mr. Harris, Theo, Amelia, Priya, Dr. Morales, and an empty chair decorated with photographs of Nathan and Julia. Celeste did not hide the empty chair. Joy did not require erasing grief. Caleb waited beneath an arch of greenery grown in Willow House beds. He wore a dark blue suit designed by someone Maisie considered more reliable than him. A narrow green thread had been sewn into the cuff to match Celeste's ring. Victor stood beside his son. "You know," he whispered, "traditionally, the bride is the one delivered to the groom." Caleb looked at him. "If you mention delivery, ribbon, debt, boxes, or vans during this ceremony, Theo has permission to remove you." Theo adjusted his tie. "I volunteered." Victor faced forward. Music began. Maisie appeared first, walking between the chairs with the solemn concentration of a diplomat carrying a peace treaty. Her dress was pale yellow, her shoes were blue, and her basket contained flower petals cut from biodegradable paper. She placed most of the petals carefully. The last handful struck Victor in the face. "Wind," she explained. There was no wind. Then Celeste entered with Eleanor. She wore a simple ivory gown with long sleeves and no corporate designer's logo. Her dark hair was pinned with a small silver comb that had belonged to Julia. She did not look like the Glass Queen, an heiress, or a CEO whose signature could move millions. She looked like Celeste. Caleb forgot to breathe. Mr. Harris quietly handed Theo money. "He cried first," he whispered. Caleb ignored them. Eleanor placed Celeste's hand in his. "Neither of you belongs to the other," she said. "That is why you may choose each other." The officiant welcomed the guests and spoke briefly about partnership. There was no exaggerated story about fate. Fate had not filled out the home study, apologized for missed promises, corrected accessibility slopes, or sat beside a frightened child in a hospital. Choice had done those things. Caleb read his vows first. "Celeste, I cannot promise that I will always understand you before you speak. We already lost too many years expecting that kind of impossible magic. I promise to ask. I promise to listen to the answer, especially when it is not the answer I wanted. I promise to protect your freedom as carefully as I protect our life together. And when fear tells either of us to close a door, I promise to stand beside you while we open it again." Celeste's eyes shone. She unfolded her paper. "Caleb, I once believed control was the safest form of love. You taught me that care without choice becomes a cage, even when the cage is beautiful. I promise never to confuse keeping you close with keeping you small. I promise to tell you what I need, to hear what you need, and to build decisions rather than issue them. I choose you without debt, without contract, and without condition. I will keep choosing you when the garden is easy and when it is not." Maisie raised her hand. The officiant paused. "Yes? I have a promise too." She stepped between Caleb and Celeste and took one hand from each. "I promise to remind both of you when you are being emotionally stupid." The garden erupted in laughter. Priya, who had spent months insisting that emotional assumptions were not a governance strategy, nodded as if accepting a particularly sensible shareholder resolution. Maisie continued, I promise to tell the truth when I am scared. I promise that loving Uncle Caleb does not mean I stop loving Daddy Nathan. And I promise to share the dragon cupboard, but only with family. Caleb crouched and hugged her. We accept your terms. The rings were exchanged. The officiant declared them married. Celeste kissed Caleb before permission was formally announced, then pulled away just enough to ask, Was that acceptable? Ask me again. She did. At the reception, no rival interrupted with a hidden contract. Amelia gave a cheerful toast and thanked both of them for proving that a professional rival could remain a respected friend instead of becoming a manipulative third wheel. I would like the record to show, Amelia said, that I offered Caleb a job because he is talented, not because I was plotting to steal the groom. Celeste understood that before the internet did. Caleb lifted his glass. To evidence. Hannah from Celeste's office gave a second toast about the employees who had spent 3 years moving meetings so the CEO could accidentally encounter her landscape consultant. Celeste denied authorizing any such behavior. Hannah displayed the calendar evidence. Theo's speech lasted 90 seconds and contained only one embarrassing childhood story. Victor's lasted 7 minutes until Maisie rang a small bell they had provided specifically for him. Eleanor danced with Caleb. Mr. Harris danced with Maisie. Priya pretended not to know how to dance until a Willow House nurse proved otherwise. Near sunset, Celeste found Caleb at the edge of the garden. Escaping your own reception? Observing it from a professionally designed angle. She stood beside him. Beyond the greenhouse, Maisie was teaching Victor the correct order for a complicated line dance. He failed with confidence. Are you happy? Caleb asked. Celeste considered the word as seriously as she considered everything. Yes. Also overwhelmed, tired, terrified, grateful, and aware that your father is about to fall into the cake. Victor stepped backward. Theo caught him. Good save, Caleb said. Celeste rested her head against his shoulder. I used to think happiness would feel like the absence of danger. What does it feel like now? Having people who will catch you before the cake? They laughed and returned to the dance floor. Marriage changed some things immediately. Caleb became legally authorized to collect Maisie from school. The Yellow House filled with wedding gifts, half of which were kitchen appliances Victor believed would prevent another salt incident. Celeste began introducing Caleb as her husband, and still looked faintly surprised each time the word belonged to her. Other things did not change. Caleb kept his last name, Celeste kept hers. Maisie remained Arden Moore. Rowan and Stem remained financially separate from Arden Holdings. Caleb continued invoicing Willow House through a contract reviewed by Priya's committee. Celeste continued forgetting wet towels on the bathroom floor, despite running a company with 60,000 employees. The adoption petition moved forward. The court-appointed social worker visited the Yellow House twice. She inspected the bedrooms, reviewed finances, interviewed references, and asked Caleb what he would do if his marriage to Celeste ended. I would remain Maisie's parent if the court allowed it, he answered. My responsibility to her cannot depend on my romantic relationship going perfectly. She asked whether he expected Maisie to treat him as a replacement for Nathan. No, I expect to help her remember him. She interviewed Maisie privately. Maisie showed her the dragon cupboard, the solar system with Saturn's uneven ring, and the photographs in the hallway. She explained that Uncle Caleb made good soup, bad paper airplanes, and excellent emergency flower crowns. Do you understand what adoption means? The social worker asked. It means he has to keep doing parent things, even when Mama C is traveling or when they argue. It means he can sign hospital papers. It means the court says he is my family. Do you want that? Yes. Do you want to call him Dad? Maisie thought. That is a different question. The social worker smiled. You're right. Eleanor submitted a written statement of support and appeared at the final hearing. She told the judge that Caleb had never asked Maisie to surrender any connection to Julia's family. He called Eleanor for advice, included her in decisions, and honored the double surname Julia had chosen. Celeste testified last. Why should this court grant your husband permanent parental rights? The judge asked. Celeste looked at Caleb. Because he already accepts permanent parental duties. The rights allow him to fulfill them. The judge reviewed the reports and then addressed Caleb. Mr. Rowan, an adoption order is not a ceremonial promise. It remains binding through conflict, separation, illness, financial difficulty, and every ordinary disappointment that follows a happy day. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. Do you accept lifelong legal and financial responsibility for Maisie Arden Moore? Caleb's answer was steady. I do. Do you understand that her connection to her deceased parents and maternal family is part of her welfare, not competition for your role? I do. I will protect it. The judge turned to Maisie. Young lady, do you wish for the court to approve this adoption? Maisie looked at Caleb. He did not nod or encourage her. He simply waited. Yes, please. The judge signed the order. Then this court recognizes Caleb Rowan as your legal parent. Your name will remain Maisie Arden Moore, according to your request. Congratulations to your family. Caleb released a breath that felt 9 months long. Maisie walked toward him. You promised in court. I did. And the judge wrote it down? She did. Maisie wrapped her arms around his neck. Okay, Dad. Caleb's face disappeared into her shoulder. Mr. Harris collected money from Theo. He cried first again, he whispered. Theo wiped his own eyes. The contest is invalid. Everyone is crying. Celeste knelt beside them and joined the embrace. Eleanor placed a hand on all three. No one took the word from Maisie. No adult coached it, purchased it, or treated it as a shortcut to sentiment. She chose it after trust, time, counseling, consent, and a promise with legal weight. That evening, they visited the cemetery. Maisie placed copies of the adoption order beneath Nathan and Julia's photograph for a moment, protected inside a clear folder. Uncle Caleb is Dad Caleb now, she told them. But you are still Daddy Nathan and Mommy Julia. We kept my name. Mama C says love can add without subtracting. Caleb stood several steps away with Celeste and Eleanor, giving her privacy. After a while, Maisie waved them closer. They planted 2 small pots of cornflowers beside the memorial and carried the legal papers home. Life settled into seasons. Summer brought the first anniversary of Willow House. Autumn brought the final completion report for Rowan Works housing development. 96% of the units were occupied. The loan reserves exceeded their new minimum, and the resident garden produced more tomatoes than the community kitchen could use. Victor stepped down as chief executive and became non-executive chair under a succession plan approved months earlier. He did not hand the company to Caleb. The board promoted operations director Lena Ortiz, who had managed the housing project through the reimbursement crisis and understood its risks better than anyone. Victor publicly credited her. Caleb remained an external creative partner. For the first time in his adult life, Victor took a 2-week vacation without scheduling investor calls. He spent 4 days of it at the Yellow House, fixing a gate no one had asked him to fix. The gate worked worse afterward. Caleb hired a carpenter. At Arden Holdings, Celeste separated the role of CEO from chair as Priya had recommended. The change reduced her personal control but strengthened the company. She appointed a chief operating officer, stopped attending meetings that did not need her, and began leaving the office before dinner 3 nights each week. None of these decisions made her less powerful. They made the organization less dependent on one exhausted person. 1 year after the wedding, Caleb and Celeste revisited the question of another child. They had discussed it before marriage, but discussion in theory was different from a decision in time. They considered health, age, work, Maisie's feelings, childcare, and the possibility that pregnancy might not happen. Maisie was invited into the family part of the conversation, not the private medical part. Would you feel worried if we tried to have a baby? Celeste asked. Maisie sat beneath the pear tree with a sketchbook. Would you stop having time for me?
No, Caleb said. But some days would be busier, and babies need a lot of help.
Would I have to help?
You could choose small things. You would never be the baby's parent.
Would the baby live in my room?
No.
Then I approve the application. Celeste raised an eyebrow. That was not a board vote. Everything is a board vote in this family. Several months later, a doctor confirmed Celeste was pregnant. They did not announce it at 8 weeks to the entire company. They told Maisie after the first medical appointments and after Dr. Morales helped them plan the conversation. They explained that early pregnancies sometimes ended and that no outcome would be anyone's fault. Maisie listened, then asked whether the baby could hear her. Later in the pregnancy, sounds can become familiar, Celeste said, but the baby cannot speak to us. Obviously, Maisie replied.
She began writing letters anyway. The first read, "Dear baby, you cannot answer yet, which is probably good, because Dad talks enough for everyone. I will teach you about dragons. Please do not touch my paints without asking. Love, Maisie." Caleb framed a copy. Pregnancy was not presented as a magical montage without discomfort. Celeste experienced nausea, fatigue, back pain, and a temporary iron deficiency managed with her medical team. She delegated travel. Caleb attended appointments when invited and did not act as if reading one parenting book made him an obstetrician. When Celeste developed concerning pain in the second trimester, they called her doctor and went to the hospital. Testing showed no labor and no emergency. She was discharged with clear instructions and a follow-up appointment. They did not turn an ordinary medical evaluation into a false tragedy. The pregnancy continued normally. At 39 weeks, labor began after dinner. Caleb forgot the hospital bag beside the front door.
Maisie noticed before they reached the end of the street.
Dad,
Yes?
the baby has clothes. You do not have the clothes.
They turned around. Eleanor came to stay with Maisie. Victor arrived, despite not being called, and was sent home until morning. Celeste delivered at the hospital under the care of her obstetric team after a long but uncomplicated labor. Their son, Owen Arden Rowan, was born healthy. He did not speak from the womb, arrive at 8 months for narrative convenience, or leave the hospital before his doctors approved discharge. He cried, slept, ate, and possessed an astonishing ability to make 4 adults debate the meaning of one facial expression. Maisie met him the next afternoon. She washed her hands, sat in a chair, and waited while Caleb helped position the baby safely in her arms. Owen opened one eye. "He looks confused," she said. "He has met Victor," Celeste replied from the bed. "That explains it." Victor pretended not to hear. Maisie touched one finger to Owen's hand. His fingers closed around it. Her face changed. For all her prepared jokes and careful questions, the tiny grip reached somewhere words had not. "Hi," she whispered. "I'm your sister. I knew this family before you, so I will explain the rules." Owen yawned. "Rule 1 is asking permission. Rule 2 is no touching my paints. Rule 3 is we remember everyone, even people you didn't get to meet." Caleb turned away to hide tears. Mr. Harris was not present to collect money, but Theo later claimed the point. The family returned home 2 days later with medical guidance, follow-up appointments, and far less sleep than any of them expected. There was no perfect week of glowing parenthood. Owen woke every 2 hours. Celeste cried one morning because she could not find a clean shirt and then laughed because she was wearing it. Caleb put a bottle in the kitchen cupboard and cereal in the refrigerator. Maisie became angry when a school performance coincided with one of Owen's appointments. Caleb attended the performance while Celeste took Owen to the doctor. They recorded both events for the other. That night, Maisie admitted she had feared the baby would always be considered more urgent. "Sometimes he will be more urgent," Caleb said. "Urgent is not the same as more loved." Celeste took Maisie's hand. "And when you need us, you do not have to become an emergency to deserve attention." They adjusted schedules. Eleanor stayed for 2 weeks. Mr. Harris taught Victor how to warm a bottle without holding a committee meeting. Theo delivered meals labeled in letters larger than those on the salt container. The house became louder, messier, and more alive. 2 years passed. Willow House opened a second location through a partnership rather than an uncontrolled expansion. Arden Holdings remained profitable under its reformed governance. Rowan Works' next project kept stronger reserves and realistic deadlines. Rowan and STEM grew into a respected design studio without losing its original shop. Amelia became a partner in the studio's conservatory division. Theo finally admitted that labels had not caused the pancake problem. Priya joined the Willow House Foundation Board. Dr. Morales developed a training program using the center's family care model. Graham completed his court-ordered service and remained barred from fund management. The protective order stayed in place. He did not appear at the family gate in the rain, kidnap anyone, or reveal that he was secretly related to the Ardens. His chapter remained closed. The final scene began where the story had started, outside the Arden estate. Victor arrived in a delivery van. Caleb stood on the steps with his arms folded. "No." Victor opened the rear doors. Inside was a large pear tree sapling, secured upright with proper straps, protective padding, ventilation, and an invoice from a licensed nursery. There was no person in the van. The old tree at your house needs a pollination partner, Victor said. I checked with the arborist. Caleb inspected the paperwork. You asked a professional? I am capable of growth. Maisie ran down the steps. At 9, she had gained a fierce interest in astronomy and learned that Owen would eat crayons if left unsupervised for 4 seconds. Is that my court day tree? It is, Victor said. After the adoption hearing, he had promised her a tree that would grow with the family. It had taken 2 years because he insisted on finding the right variety for their garden rather than buying the largest one immediately. Celeste followed with Owen in her arms. Where is the ribbon? She asked. Victor looked offended. I learned my lesson. Mr. Harris pointed to a small red bow tied around the invoice. Most of it, he corrected. They planted the sapling beside the older pear tree at the Yellow House. Caleb dug the hole. Celeste checked the depth. Maisie added compost. Owen attempted to eat a leaf. Victor gave instructions until Eleanor handed him a shovel. When the tree stood straight, Maisie placed a wooden marker in the soil. It read, The Rowan Arden Moore Family Tree. Chosen, not traded. Caleb read it twice. You put every surname on it. Every branch, Maisie said. They gathered beneath the 2 trees for a photograph. Nathan and Julia were present in the stories Maisie told. Caleb's mother was present in the flower shop name he had preserved. Celeste's years of loneliness were not denied, but they no longer defined the house. Victor's mistakes were remembered alongside the work he had done to change. Their family was not perfect. It was accountable. That evening, after everyone left, Caleb sat beneath the pear trees while Celeste rested beside him. Through the open kitchen window, Maisie could be heard reading one of her old letters to Owen.
Dear baby, you cannot answer yet.
Owen responded with a loud, incomprehensible sentence.
Maisie gasped. He can answer now, but it isn't useful.
Caleb laughed. Celeste reached for his hand.
Do you ever think about the van?
Usually when your father-in-law arrives in one.
You could have left that night.
You made sure I could.
And you stayed.
Caleb looked through the window at their children. I stayed for 6 months. Then I returned the next day. Then I chose another day. Eventually the choices became a life. Celeste leaned closer. Would you choose it again? Ask me tomorrow. She frowned. He kissed her temple. So I can say yes again? The man who arrived as a joke about repayment never became anyone's property. The woman accused of buying a husband never used money to command his heart. The child who had lost 2 parents did not replace them. She allowed her family to grow around their memory. And the debt that had brought 3 lonely people into the same house was paid in full by a business that learned from its mistakes, not by a marriage, a child, or a human life. What remained between Caleb and Celeste was not an obligation. It was choice. It was communication. It was the daily, imperfect work of becoming a family. And that is how a ridiculous red ribbon, cut away at the very first door, became the beginning of a home where nobody would ever be traded again. The end. If you enjoyed Caleb, Celeste, and Maisie's complete story, tell us in the comments which moment made you smile the most. Was it Maisie choosing the word dad only after the court promise? Celeste and Caleb finally communicating honestly? Or the family tree planted at the Yellow House? And if you want more complete romance stories with smart characters, emotional healing, wholesome family moments, clear conclusions, and no missing villain arcs, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel.